Is this fine? Oh, you're done already? Yes. What nice handwriting. Were you perhaps a scribe in a past life? The strong, silent type, I see. Well, you can go now, Mr. Siegfried. Roland nodded to the guild member as he handed over the sheet of paper. On it, he had written his statement about what had transpired the previous night. For some reason, no one truly questioned him. It did not seem as though the guild master actually wanted to know what had happened. Roland had expected to be pressed for the truth, but instead the man appeared more interested in letting the matter fade away. I faked the handwriting and the mana pattern, so everything should be fine. As someone who possessed the runic mana scribe class, forging handwriting was quite simple for him. Written text sometimes carried a mana signature if examined closely enough, and that too, could be imitated. That should settle it. He stepped out of the guild building and made his way toward the Red Dragon Inn, where Agni was waiting. His thoughts had already shifted to his upcoming projects and how best to complete them. Now that his name was established here, he could continue hunting sea serpents without interruption. Even if someone grew suspicious, no one would connect him to the earlier grinding attempts, as Siegfried had only arrived recently. I did not even have time to properly congratulate Bernier on his new class. I wonder what we could accomplish with those soul skills. Roland knew about his assistant's new class, but he had been too busy to speak with him while he was on the clock. The idea of gaining direct skill boosts through crafted items was highly enticing. At present, his runes were mostly limited to enhancing raw statistics or elemental affinities, and occasionally other energies such as aura. They could not directly increase skill levels. There was a vast difference between a swordsman with swordsmanship at level 1 and another at level 9. Even if the latter had lower overall stats, he would likely win a duel if both fought with swords. To bridge that gap through attributes alone would require a significant difference in raw numbers. Roland understood this well, especially given the high stat multipliers he himself possessed. Then there was the approaching school competition, and his involvement in it. Although the participating students had not yet been selected, he already had several ideas for what he might create. Before that, however, he wanted to obtain the high-quality battle golems crafted by Hassim. He had mentioned bringing the runesmith from Albrook to negotiate an exchange of secrets. However, Roland was still unsure what knowledge he should trade for the golem schematics. There is one thing that I can entice him with. He had an idea of what Hassim might truly want, but he was not sure if giving away such technology was wise, at least not until he could fully trust the man. There were not many runic technologies that would tempt a master craftsman of his level. It would likely come down to the prosthetic designs or the runic batteries, though perhaps a few improvements to existing runes would be enough. Welcome back, Mr. Siegfried. You really gave me a scare. Amon was gone from his pen too. I almost had a heart attack. When he arrived at the inn, Millie was there to greet him. Agni had still been in one of the pens when he retired to his room, but when they began chasing the assassin, he had quietly freed him. Millie must have assumed that something terrible had happened, but he had no time to explain. My apologies. It was a rather urgent matter. I heard. An assassin. That must have been frightening, but people are saying you managed to chase him down. Yes, more or less. The matter has been resolved, so you do not have to worry. Rumors about the previous night had already begun to spread, though not the full truth. The adventurers staying here did not seem overly concerned about thieves or about punishments carried out without a formal trial. To them, this was simply another incident that ended in death, no different from what happened regularly inside the dungeon. The stew is still warm. I am sure you must be famished after such an eventful night. Millie beckoned him inside, but in truth, he did not plan to continue living there. The Siegfried persona had only been a cover to justify his operations within the Third Ring, and now he had little reason to fully maintain it. He had delivered her father, Hermes, safely and had even gained Harfon's support. While his business in this area was not entirely finished, he no longer needed to stay, and his time could be better spent elsewhere. I am actually heading back into the dungeon. I am not sure when I will return, so you may vacate my room. Oh. Are you really leaving? Amon too? Why don't you stay a bit longer? It seemed she was more saddened by Agni's departure than his own. He still considered taking the girl under his wing, but that would have to wait until he returned in his role as a runesmith. He was not yet certain how to arrange it, though there were a few people he could ask to pose as his adventurer guards once he came back. Those two might not be ready for this palace, but perhaps I could help them improve a little while they are here. He thought and then resumed his conversation with the girl. Yes, he will be coming with me. I understand. The girl lowered her head for a moment, then quickly raised it when she heard her mother calling for help. Ah, I need to go, Mr. Siegfried. Take care. She hurried off and returned to work while he walked over to Agni, who seemed rather bored. Let's go, Amun. Woof. Together they moved through the adventurer's stronghold. His fame there was beginning to grow, and he caught a few people whispering about his exploits. That's him, the guy who chased down that assassin. They say he took out a monster over level 250 on his own. Really? I would like to see him fight the Drake King. I bet he would not last a single bite. Want to bet on it? Roland kept his pace steady and unhurried. Rumors spreading about him were nothing unusual, and this kind was not so bad. If he was known for being strong, it would discourage weaker adventurers from bothering him. He neither confirmed nor denied the stories and simply let them circulate. A reputation, when shaped with care, could be useful. Agni padded beside him, tail swaying lazily. Other adventurers stepped aside as they passed, and soon he reached the gate. The assassin had taken the form of one of the adventurers still stationed there. The man appeared unharmed and very much alive. Let's go home for now, Agni. Once they were far enough from the settlement, he began speaking to Agni in his usual tone. Awoo! His wolf companion seemed delighted to hear his real name again. Roland patted him on the head, and before long, they were making their way quickly toward the hidden lair. Along the way, he checked the sensors he had planted throughout the settlement. They now allowed him to monitor the city even in his absence. The output had been minimized to avoid detection by the few mages living there, and for the moment, he remained unnoticed. It limits the scanner's range and creates a few dead zones, but it is still better than nothing. Although his sensor technology had advanced significantly, it still had drawbacks. One was its limited range, and another was its mana consumption. It was not a system that functioned well outside a dungeon. In a place like this, the devices could slowly siphon mana from the environment to sustain themselves. However, outside the mana density was much lower, which meant that cables were still required to supply additional power. Going fully wireless was not yet possible, but perhaps once they managed to activate those towers with the help of the Valyrian house, it could become a reality. Should I check out that area, or take a break for now? Even though he was heading home, there was still one location in this dungeon that he had not fully examined, the closed-off area near the waterfall with the dragon-shaped stone formation. From what he knew, a party of adventurers would be heading there soon. If he moved in alone beforehand, it might bring certain benefits. They say it is a randomized reward of great value, but if it is just some equipment, it would be a waste of my time. To a craftsman like him, who could order materials or gather them himself, new equipment was not especially valuable. It would be far better to obtain something he could not simply build, such as an elixir capable of restoring Bernier's lost hand, or some other rare item. Still, there was a chance that something truly exceptional could appear, which made it worth investigating before the other adventurers arrived. Want to go hunt some drakes? Woof. I might as well take a look. But first, I need to take care of something else. He responded to Agni, and soon the two vanished through the teleportation portal, returning to Albrook. His wolf rode up the elevator, but he did not leave the workshop right away. Instead, he removed his current armor, shedding the dark shell and replacing it with an older model that the people at the institute recognized him for. Once prepared, he activated the gate again and appeared within the halls of Xandar's Institute of Wizardry. Welcome back, Deputy Professor. Have you come to watch my lecture? No, I am just here to check on some of my old students. Ah. He encountered Arian drifting through the runic department, which had grown considerably since his arrival. There were now multiple assistant professors, and the lecture halls were once again filled to the brim with new mages. It seemed that many had begun to recognize the value of rune mages, and even a few young students had chosen to follow that path. There she is. Roland had come for one specific reason, his younger sister Lucienne. She had returned much sooner than he expected. The incident involving Viola Castellane had been resolved, but it had been quickly followed by Robert's case, during which she had been taken away by their father. So she is back and safe. Her presence here was both a source of joy and of unease. She had once been targeted by a high noble, and he could not be certain that one of Viola Castellane's henchmen would not attempt some form of retribution. However, his father's recent ascension to Marshal had elevated House Arden's standing. There were even rumors that they might be granted a Viscount title because of it. She is at the dorm with her friends now. Thanks to his monitoring technology, which now extended throughout the entire institute, he could easily access the golem cameras. There he saw her, his younger sister Lucienne, looking genuinely happy. Her two friends, Adesuna and Marline, were with her, but one person was missing. That Margaret Braganza is not here. Margaret Braganza remained a mystery to him. She had doted on his sister and had been a loyal friend, yet she had not returned to the institute. He suspected that her true identity was that of a royal, or perhaps the daughter of a duke. There was also the possibility that she was a foreign princess of considerable standing. The surrounding empires and kingdoms sometimes allowed one of their many princes or princesses to travel the world while concealing their titles. Most likely, after the incident, she had been ordered to return to wherever she came from. It was unfortunate, but that was simply how this world worked. The three of them seem happy though. Best not to bring her up around them. Roland chose not to listen in on their conversation. Instead, he used his authority to give an order to one of the assistant professors. She carried it out quickly, and about 15 minutes later, he saw her approach Lucienne. "Are you the student, Lucienne Arden?" "Ah, good day, yes, that's me," she replied in a bright voice as the woman came closer. "The deputy professor wishes to speak with you." "Deputy Professor Wayland is here." Roland watched as his sister looked around frantically at the mention of his current alias. She even grabbed the assistant professor's hand and began shaking it. Where is he? Is he using some kind of concealment spell?" No. He isn't here. He said he will see you in his office." The woman he had sent appeared thoroughly confused. Lucienne quickly released her hand and began bowing in apology while her two friends laughed. Then she straightened abruptly and hurried off with a sudden burst of energy. By that time, Roland was already waiting in the office beneath the tree tower of the Archmagus. Yavana already knew his true name and his connection to Lucienne, so there was little risk even if she overheard their conversation. There was not much left that she could use to blackmail him, yet he still took precautions to conceal everything they discussed here. Even if she had no intention of using anything against him now, that did not mean others within the institute would show the same restraint. When she arrived outside, the hidden doors opened, and she stepped inside without hesitation. It reminded him of the first time he revealed his identity to her. Back then, she had kicked him in the shin and injured her own foot in the process. This time, however, things were different. "You wanted to see me, Deputy Professor. It's fine. You can speak normally here, Lucienne." The moment he said those words, he saw her expression change. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. "Why you really here?" Roland felt something tighten in his chest. He had prepared arguments, explanations, even a few carefully constructed lies if necessary. None of them seemed useful now, faced with his sister on the verge of tears. As always, he struggled with situations charged with emotion. Even so, he stepped forward. The movement felt awkward, but he wrapped his arms around his younger sister and pulled her into an embrace. "I am." He kept his reply simple, and that was enough. She finally broke down. Her hands clutched the back of his robe as if she feared he would disappear the moment she let go. "I thought father would never let me return here, that we would never be able to see each other again." She sobbed for a moment, but as she kept talking, something broke the mood. "Ow, your armor. It's too hard." "Oh, sorry about that." Even though he wore a robe over it, he still had a full suit of mithril armor underneath. It had not been made with comfort in mind, especially not for anyone trying to hug him. There were hard edges and thick plates, so he stepped back and removed his helmet at last, revealing his face. "I am a bit confused as well. How did you get father to let you come back here?" "Hehe, I have my ways. It's a maiden secret." She smiled brightly, giving him a vague answer and sticking out her tongue. There were many things they could talk about, but before he could ask anything, she rushed ahead. "I got your message. Is brother Robert really safe? Can I talk to him? Mother hasn't been the same since he left." There were a lot of questions, and he was not surprised that the conversation had quickly shifted to Robert. Both he and Lucille were now under his protection, living in Valyrian territory. Then there was Francine, the mother of Lucienne and Robert. It was no surprise that she had taken the disappearance of her only son poorly. Her position at the estate had likely been shaken as well, but he could not reveal anything yet. Robert had already begun a new life on Dragness Island, and they could not afford Francine informing their father about it. This might take a while. Why don't you sit down and have some tea first, and I'll tell you everything. He planned to explain Robert's current life, but he also wanted to hear about the situation at the Arden estate. They had all the time they needed, and soon the reunited siblings were deep in conversation. It's such a shame Mother couldn't be there. She would have loved to see it, but I don't think the Count would have allowed it. Probably not. Roland and his sister were talking about their older brother, Robert. The conversation drifted to his wedding, one that had not been officially sanctioned by their parents. In their world, nobles usually married to secure alliances and advantages, not for love. Lucille had already been promised to someone else, and an agreement between two noble families was not easily broken. There needed to be a compelling reason to dissolve it, otherwise the wronged family could demand a substantial sum of gold as compensation for the insult. In this case, it would be deeply humiliating for a noble lady to choose a no-name knight like Robert. Even though their father's reputation had grown, it was still not enough. Perhaps if father gave them his blessing. Did he suddenly grow softer while I was away? Lucienne still clung to a sliver of hope. If their family truly wished to proceed and if their father offered his blessing, then perhaps it might be possible. But she was forgetting one important detail. I do not think so. Exactly. And besides, he already made a binding contract with Lady Lucille's father to send Robert away. That's true. Lucienne lowered her head as the weight of reality settled over her. The binding contract between their father and Graham de Vere had not been a mere verbal agreement. Among nobles, especially those of standing like House de Vere, contracts were reinforced with magic. Graham could even claim that House Arden had acted in bad faith and deliberately broken the agreement, bringing serious consequences upon their entire family. It's unfair. She muttered. They love each other. Isn't that supposed to matter? Why do those old men have to interfere? Roland did not respond. He did not want to shatter his sister's fragile understanding of the world. She was still a child and did not truly grasp how things worked. Unfortunately, that is simply how this world functions. But do not worry. In time, you will be able to see him again, maybe sooner than you might think. Really? I can meet him. Yes. I would even take you with me now, but we need to be careful of the person you came with. In truth, Roland could simply step through the gate and take his sister to see their brother whenever he wished. The problem was not the gate but the person she arrived with. Her. Yes. I checked your situation, and if I try to take you with me, that guard of yours will start asking questions. Even now, the person who had accompanied Lucienne stood outside the entrance to the deputy professor's private office. She kept her distance, but her gaze never strayed far. She was Lucienne's new personal guard, a Tier 3 woman knight assigned to protect her after the recent attack. Iveta would probably tell father about it. That would be my guess. She was likely ordered to shadow you and report your movements back to the estate regularly. The situation reminded Roland of the man once assigned to watch over him when he left to become an adventurer. Back then, his guardian had only been a trainee knight, poorly equipped and even more poorly prepared. The difference was obvious. His sister received a seasoned knight in proper gear, while he had been given the bare minimum. It was a quiet but clear sign of how their family valued them. Iveta, is it? She seems diligent. Is she here? Just outside. She saw you enter through the hidden door and has been waiting ever since. Through the monitoring system, Roland could easily observe anyone lingering nearby. Lucienne was officially his student, which gave him a reasonable excuse to meet with her. However, if he attempted to take her to the teleportation chamber, the knight would almost certainly intervene. You can see her while we're talking. It is not difficult. Roland stretched out his hand. The runes etched into his armor began to glow and shift as he adjusted the spell. Moments later, a small holographic image of the park outside flickered into view. Iveta stood behind one of the trees, watching the building's entrance with a serious look on her face. Oh! It really is her. Lucienne was still a novice mage, currently classed as a clairvoyant. It was not a combat-focused class, but it excelled at reconnaissance and perception. If you continue practicing your spells, you may be able to do something similar before long. Really? Yes, one of the first things a clairvoyant learns is to see things from a distance. Have you been studying anything during your house arrest? Not really. The teacher father hired only taught me some basic and a few new mana meditation techniques, along with a couple of new spells. He could see her status screen, and it was true. She had not learned anything that would truly advance her core abilities. She had gained a few levels and picked up several additional combat spells. It was possible she had been using the underground area to defeat monsters. The same one he trained when he was young against goblins. Is that so? Then take this. This is a special badge. With it, you will be able to access the Institute libraries without limits. Just be careful. Your current class is quite special. I know. Mother and father even gave me this. Roland nodded when he noticed the pendant she was wearing. It concealed her status screen and displayed her second class as a Mana scribe. It was similar to the necklace he used himself, though his version might have been more refined. It is good, but use this as well. From his runic spatial pocket, he produced a small ring. The runes etched into it were extremely small. Unless examined closely, even experienced runesmiths or rune mages would not be able to determine its function. It will enhance the pendant you already have and also allow me to know where you are. Keep it with you at all times. Lucienne nodded, took the ring, and tried to slip it onto one of her fingers. Thank you, but I think it is a bit too big for me. Just inject some of your mana into it. Like this. She followed his instructions. As her mana flowed into the ring, it began to shrink until it fit her finger perfectly. Oh? How does it work? It uses a special spell combined with an alloy that can constrict slightly when infused with mana. If you reverse the flow of mana, it will expand again. After giving an explanation, he demonstrated the process once more, enlarging and shrinking the ring before they finished their conversation. Elydia had helped him with the design, since he had no idea what a teenager might consider cute to wear. Judging by her reaction, his sister liked it. It is best if we end this now. Otherwise, your guardian will grow suspicious. She seems to be getting restless. Roland noticed the night peeking out from behind a tree more frequently. It was clear she was about to approach. He had said what he needed to his sister and had also gathered some information about his father and the Arden estate. As always, their father, Wentworth Arden, remained near the northern border. With his newly acquired position, he had become deeply involved in the ongoing battles against the Empire and other forces that threatened the kingdom. Roland did not know whether his father was searching for Robert. Lucienne had told him that Wentworth had rarely been at the estate since the escape. Francine, the second wife, was aware that Robert was alive, as he had sent a message to ease his family's worries while making them believe he had left the kingdom to start a better life elsewhere. Ivita can be overprotective. It is all because of Mother. She made all those unreasonable orders. She is always somewhere, watching. Lucienne seemed to have some reservations about her new chaperone, but in Roland's eyes, the woman was doing a good job. It was understandable that Francine had tightened security around her youngest daughter. After Robert's trial and disappearance, fear had likely taken root in her heart. Your mother is worried. After what happened, caution is not unreasonable. I know. At least in this institute you are safe, so go back to your friends and your classes. Use the badge I gave you to study for the tests. You are going to need it. Tests? Yes. Did you forget that you missed a lot of classes? You will have to retake them before midterms. Ack. Lucienne grabbed her head as if she might tear out her hair. She had missed many lessons, and some needed to be completed, or she would be held back a year. Luckily, she still had time to catch up with her peers. Just do your best. Finally, Roland rose from his seat and headed for the exit. Before he could reach it, he felt her hug him from the side. His sister no longer seemed to mind the sharp edges of his armor. For a moment, he wrapped an arm around her and gently patted her head. I am glad that you are back. I did not think I would ever see you again. Well, it was not a decision I entirely made myself. Oh. Let's walk, and I'll explain. Roland moved forward and explained that he would be coming here more often than he had originally planned. The Runic Department will take part in the Quinquennial Arcane Institute convocation, and due to certain circumstances, I will be designing some of the devices for the competition. The Quinquennial Arcane Institute convocation. Yes. In a few months, I also have to decide on some of the students who will participate. Surprisingly, Lucienne did not ask many questions. Instead, she seemed lost in thought. The participants are chosen based on their grades, right? As they were about to step outside, she stopped and asked her question. Yes, most of them will be selected from the top performers. Usually, the highest-scoring students were chosen to represent the institute. However, a professor could also nominate someone they believed was exceptional in a particular field. There were many competitions, some larger than others, so there would be many participants this time, and the competition would be fierce. Good grades. His sister nodded as though she had come to a decision. A moment later, the door opened, and the two of them stepped outside. Ivita, the knight hiding behind one of the trees, had moved a little closer. The instant she spotted Lucienne, however, she froze. Someone needs to teach her how to be less obvious. The thought crossed Roland's mind as he glanced at the knight. Ivita stood rigid behind the tree, half of her armored shoulder visible from his angle. Strong, perhaps, but hardly subtle. At least her level is high. Name: Ivita Beaumont L224. Classes: T3 Spirit Spear Champion L74. T2 Spirit Spear Knight L50. T2 Spear Knight L50. T1 Squire L25. T1 Warrior L25. He did not recognize the woman's last name and wondered if she had only recently sworn loyalty to his father during one of his military expeditions. Now that his father held a high enough position, being a baron no longer mattered. Many would seek to prove their worth, and perhaps she was one of them. She could contend with that Baskerville fellow, but not against more than one. He thought back to the magic sword master he had faced with his allies. This knight stood at a similar level. In most regions of the kingdom, a Tier 3 class holder would be more than sufficient, but Roland remained cautious. There were far too many hidden powerhouses in this world. For now, though, he would have to entrust his sister to this woman and to the institute. As long as the Archmagus resided here, it was likely the safest place for Lucienne. Ivita, come out. I know you are here. Roland stepped away, and Lucienne did the same. They parted as teacher and student rather than as brother and sister. Ivita seemed startled that she had been discovered and slowly leaned out from behind the tree. She was slightly taller than average, with long brown hair and light blue eyes. Medium half-plate armor covered her body, the crest of House Arden displayed on her shoulder guard. A long spear rested against her back, its pale polished shaft reinforced with dormant runes near the blade. My apologies, Lady Lucienne. Ivita said, stepping fully into view and giving a crisp bow. Her voice was steady, but her eyes briefly shifted toward Roland. Deputy Professor Wayland, I presume. Roland inclined his head slightly, adopting the calm and distant demeanor expected of him. Indeed. She is free to go. He gestured, expecting both of them to leave. Instead, the woman approached him, her expression serious. At first, he was unsure of her intentions, half expecting the knight to scold him for addressing her as though she were a commoner. However, before he could say anything, she suddenly knelt before him as if he were her lord. News of what you have done for House Arden has reached me. You will forever have my earnest gratitude for protecting Lady Lucienne and even Lord Robert. Ah! Several students began glancing over. It was not common for knights to kneel before others so openly. It was nothing. I was simply doing my duty as a faculty member. Roland shook his head, trying to downplay his involvement, but the woman did not seem convinced. Rather than leaving, she stepped forward, took his hand, and held it firmly. Nonsense! You showed righteousness and courage when others chose silence. House Arden will not forget such a debt. Her grip was strong. Had he not been a Tier 3 class holder who had undergone bone reinforcement, his hand might have been crushed. He could not tell whether she was testing his strength or if this was simply the depth of her devotion to the Arden estate. Resisting the urge to pull away, Roland turned his head toward Lucienne, who immediately understood. Ivita, what are you doing? Leave the deputy professor alone. You are causing a scene. At her words, Ivita seemed to notice their surroundings. She released his hand at once and rose smoothly to her feet, though her posture remained rigid. My apologies. I allowed my emotions to run wild and overstepped. Please punish me accordingly. Is this person truly trustworthy? The moment she stood, her voice rang out across the courtyard as if she were a soldier reporting a grave mistake to her superior. It was painfully obvious she had spent her life in the north battling nations and monsters rather than attending courtly gatherings. Roland quickly raised a hand before she could kneel again. There is no need for punishment. Please just remain standing. Ivita froze mid-motion, then straightened like a spear driven into the ground. Yes, sir. Lucienne covered her face with one hand. Lower your voice. Several students were openly staring now. A few whispered among themselves, no doubt wondering why an armored knight had just declared her loyalty to a deputy professor in full view of the campus courtyard. I need to attend to some things. Roland exhaled slowly inside his helmet and turned away before the strange woman could start shouting again. His sister's face had flushed red as she noticed the other students staring at them from all sides. That brief encounter marked the end of their meeting, and Roland finally had an excuse to leave the institute. The competition had not begun yet, so for now, he headed back home. They will be all right, won't they? As he stepped into his workshop, the question surfaced again. He was not certain he could trust that knight with his sister's safety. Her skill in battle was likely impressive, but she did not seem particularly sharp. Anyone with a bit of cunning could probably deceive her. Hey boss, you're finally back. While he was considering the possibility of crafting a powerful golem to guard his sister, his assistant appeared at the entrance. For now, at least, yes. Bernier looked unusually cheerful. He stood there as if expecting Roland to congratulate him again on his new class. Congratulations again, Bernier. How is the new class? Haha, it's great, boss. I can't stop myself from using this soul sense. He declared this while squinting in Roland's direction. At first, he wore a wide grin, but it gradually shifted into a look of confusion. That's odd. Bernier's voice turned uncertain, and Roland frowned. What is your color? Usually there's only one, but you have more than one.